Okay, can we begin?
Yes.
Okay, welcome all of you. As you can see, we're struggling to work with the sound system and all the connections necessary for this webinar because we are all at home, and we thought it is important to continue to do the things that we had planned to do as best as we can. So thank you all for your patience and for your willingness to be with us at this time. I'm going to begin to share my screen to show you some PowerPoint here. So we began by sending out to you this flyer, inviting you to the webinar for today. And as you can see, we have many things that are really important for us to look at. And as I welcome you, my name is Sister Sheila Kinsey. I'm a Franciscan sister, a daughter of the Sacred Hearts of Jesus and Mary. I am the campaign coordinator for Sowing Hope for the Planet. And I'm really very, very happy to be here with you as we share our journey with awareness, integrated action, and a spiritual message of Laudato Sii, Pope Francis's encyclical. As we know, everything is interconnected, and we are so mindful of that. You know, as we explore the topic today, we'll be guided by and celebrating the message of Laudato Si. And I use both words, guided and celebrate, because we're very conscious of the fact that we're all struggling in one way or another with the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. And we are grieving or holding hands or being compassionate walkers with others who are in some way dealing with this pandemic, as we are ourselves. And so with this in mind, the service, the webinar that we have today, we are keeping that pain in mind as we go forward for this session. Awareness, integrated action, spiritual message, celebrating Laudato Si. And as you can see, we've prepared a very thoughtful presentation. Soon we will begin a prayer with Father Armando, and then we'll be sharing an overview of the celebration of Laudato Si that had been planned for a week in May, but still we'll go forward as best we can. We'll have a speaker, Sister Maria de Los Angeles Marcodeja, your Ursuline Sister of Jesus, who will be joining us from Canada, sharing their congregational integration of Laudato Si. I will then follow up with the interconnections of what we call a 2020 rollout plan. This is more than just one event that we're talking about celebrating Laudato Si, but seeing how we can interconnect that with our congregational activities and the messages that our congregations can give. And then our third speaker is Amy Escrivera, who's the board chair of the Global Catholic Climate Movement. And they had a precious experience with Pope Francis, and she will share that experience with us in a very delightful and moving way. We realize the importance of our solidarity. And then we will have an opportunity for you to ask questions or comments, really an open forum for us. So we want to begin with prayer with Father Armando, who is the Executive Co-Secretary of the JPIC Commission of USG and UISG, along with myself. He's a Redemptorist priest and a noted author in his own right of many issues related to JPIC. So Father Armando, please. I'm not sure that we're all hearing you, Father, or see your screen.
Okay, I am.
Okay.
I'm so I couldn't I have oh where is it? It was here. Oh wait a minute. Here. Here you are. All right, sorry. Uh, mm, Praise be to you, Lord, Almighty Creator of everything that is, and present in all that you have created. You made the earth to be our common home and commanded us to care for it. You made us to be in communion with you, with one another, and with all creation. You created us to love and serve you, one another, and the rest of creation. Lord, our common home is being devastated due to human greed and a drive to dominate the earth. May we heed the call of Pope Francis to conversion. May we become aware that we are all part of the human family, that the sun, the moon, the stars, the trees, the animals are our brothers and sisters too. We become aware that we are all interconnected. May we become aware of the ecological crisis that threatens to decimate us and the generations to come. May we hear the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. Give us the courage to act now before it is too late and adopt a sustainable lifestyle. This we ask full of trust and hope in you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Armando, for this very moving prayer. You have certainly helped us to be open to the movement of the sharing, which we will have as we strive to increase our awareness, consider how we can integrate our actions, and be inspired by the spiritual messages that you gave us and that others will continue to give to us throughout this presentation. So with that, I would like to continue on talking a little bit more about what we mean by Laudato Si week. So with this, the guidance and inspiration from Laudato Si, we want to give special recognition to the 5th anniversary. And many things were planned for this time, many of them in May because of the anniversary date being in May. But we're going to go forward because many people have made plans before the coronavirus pandemic, and they're going to be doing them in some way, adapting the original dates, which were thought to be May 16th to the 24th of May. And we want to do this in union and collaboration with the Global Catholic Climate Movement. So the feature is the week whenever we decide that we can celebrate the 5th anniversary of Laudato Si. It's important to remind ourselves that we have recently received Carita Amazonia, the dreams of the Amazon, which were social, cultural, ecological, and ecclesial. Here we have pictures of our indigenous people really coming into Rome, but they have gathered with many others, the hierarchy, our religious leaders, sisters, the brothers, laity. All of us were one family during this time of the Synod, which is reflected in the dream of Carita Amazonia. Social, enjoy good living with all of creation. You can see this in the picture. The cultural way of life celebrated by the people in the Amazon. The ecological care for our brothers and sisters and all the environment, as you can see with some of the artifacts here. And the ecclesial dimension, St. Peter's, Santa Maria in Traspertina, the church, the people of God. The martyrs, Sister Dorothy Stang is here, a sister of Notre Dame Namur, who was often mentioned throughout the days of the Casa Común and the Synod, as we brought together their martyrs as well for the environment. But our campaign, Sowing Hope for the Planet, also has a dream and a vision that was accepted by acclaim at the 2019 plenary of the Major Superiors of Women in Rome this past May. And this was the dream that we gave. We commit ourselves to both personal and communal conversion, and we wish to move forward together in an orchestrated and coordinated response in listening to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor as we go forth as instruments of hope in the heart of the world. So working together in a coordinated manner that we can make a beautiful song together with our own way of playing our instruments from our different congregations. So we're reminded, as Jesus does, he's a sower, so are we. And so we continue on being that messenger, being that sower of hope in the world, taking Jesus as the example and knowing that our seed may go in very different paths. But as Laudato Si asks of us in our own reflection, that we are to determine what each one of us can do as the mustard seed. As you can see, this little bitty seed in this finger can grow into this beautiful mustard seed. So we have that capability, knowing that we are moving with the Spirit within us to make Laudato Si a reality. So as collaborators, considering various events, particular events for Laudato Si, we're asking you to post both the event that you would decide to do on the campaign website for Sowing Hope for the Planet, as well as the Global Catholic Climate website, because both of us need to have information from different purposes. So this is what you will see as a logo for this week whenever we decide to celebrate that event. And you can see with our campaign logo, the JPIC logo, UISG, which initiated this campaign, as well as the GCCM logo. So I want to encourage you to really use this website as a means of networking with one another. That's really, really, really important for us. So you see here the home page. We have it in various languages, all 6 languages. We have in a special way here the Global Catholic Climate bar If you click on it, you will find all of the services that are offered from GCCM in one place and in what languages they are available in. And then this is the rollout plan, which we will talk more about in a little bit later. But these are all available for us in this website, which is designed for you to use. Very, very important. So this is what we call the resource page. So there was a little place up here that was called resources. So if you would click onto that resources, that would take you to this page. And I want you, if you've not visited this page, to do so. And it's been especially designed for this campaign. So you see here all of the languages that the resources are available in, as well as the different categories that you can find information about. And so what I have highlighted here before taking the picture was English, something in Laudato Si, which we have had many resources. The place that you will begin to put Laudato Si week, we have nothing there yet, but would hope that people would be able to participate and put resources there. And then you can do the search, and you would find much more than what's here on the panel that would pop up for you. And then you can reset it and do it again. We have placed here in Laudato Si the message that Sister Maria dos Angeles will be presenting to you next in this presentation. So her talk will be available for you, as well as the recordings that are being done at this moment. So this is a resource page, a library for you to use, and please do use it. This is the place where it says resource. So if you want to enter a resource, you have your congregational name, your email, all of your contact information, and then you would choose a category or many categories to place your resource. And here you can see already we have Laudato Si week for people to offer that resource. And then there's the submit. So this is very important. It's those who want to give a resource, they're the ones who determine what areas it could be used in. And many of our congregations submit resources in several other languages. So really, the strength of this networking is depending upon how well we can collaborate with one another. That's the strength, that's the important place for us to be together. Once you put that on the submit for us to see, then we upload it. We wait for you to submit something and then review it, because we do not want hackers using our system. So that's a safeguard for you, that you submit it, we review it, and then we put it on the website. And I'm so grateful for the many persons, religious, who have submitted many of the resources that we have. And this is the contact us page. So this is where you would put your information so that you would have our newsletter. And then if you have not been registered here, you would need to do that. So you would be in our system, so that if you submit a resource, then we would post it knowing, we would know then who you are. I want to point out something special here that has a category that has women's congregation, and if I would click on it, it would say men's congregations. And the purpose of that is that we have invited the men who have asked to be included in this campaign, but we still wanted to keep the data separate because we wanted to know what the religious congregations are doing. We can put information together when we choose to do so, but at this point, we really are trying to keep things separate so that when they ask, what are the sisters doing, we can say that. And that's important for us to get a sense of where we are in all of this. And then this is a page from the Global Catholic Climate Movement. So I wanted you to see where you would go if you all, when you would register on this, with this campaign for them. Again, we are working together. They use the information different than we do, but with privacy, we have to be able to use information with the permission of the people that are involved with us. So that's important. And the other reason is because we are collecting it in a different way for different purposes. They are our collaborating partners, and we certainly work together. I'm on their steering committee, so it's important for me as well that the campaign for GCCM goes well. And this you saw on the screen, and I will just mention it now because after Sister Maria De Angelis speaks, I will go back to this. All I want to say is we talked about giving different events for Laudato Si week, whenever we choose to celebrate that, because people are making additions and adaptations. But we want to see how these events also continue to help us organize and reflect how we make this a reality in our congregations. So the interconnections of our actions are important to make the spirit of Laudato Si a reality in our world. So with that background, I want to let you know that they will be working with 3 different speakers. The sister that will be speaking of the Ursuline experience, more on the Laudato Si plans going forward, and a person speaking of the board experience with Pope Francis. So this is kind of a framework of how we will move forward. So our first speaker from the Ursulinas de Jesus, Sister Maria de los Angeles Marco Teja, who is an Ursuline sister, and she joins us from Canada. I'm not sure now, but she is from Edmonton, Canada. She's a sister of the congregation who's been linked to the world of human rights in some stages at professional level and in others as a volunteer. For 5 years, she lived in Ecuador, and she joined the RAPAM, the Pan-Amazonic Ecclesial Network, and participated in the first school for the promotion of human rights organized by RAPAM. She has accompanied the case of a town in Ecuador affected by the implementation of an open pit mine. Sister Miangeles has participated as a systematizer in the consultation process organized on the occasion of the Pan-Amazonian Synod. Since she has been living in Canada, Edmonton, she's been involved in the Sacred Heart of the First People Parish and collaborates with Development and Peace, Caritas Canada, in the campaign A Future for the Amazon, A Future for All. And she is the contact person for the campaign Sowing Hope for the Planet for the Ursuline Sisters of Jesus. So with that, I present to you our dear Sister Maria de los Angeles.
Thank you very much. I first want to give thanks to the campaign and all those who supported, because during this process of integration for the Ursulines, it is very important for us to participate to the campaign. So thank you. To begin, I cannot share my screen. I cannot show you my screen, but there's a problem with my PowerPoint. I cannot share it. Okay. But there are 2 important facts. You have it now. Can you change the slide? Okay. 2 important facts. Firstly, the participation to the School for Human Rights organized by REPAM in May of 16 in Coca. It's a school for the promotion of human rights among the indigenous people. And there was an indigenous leader and a pastoral agent. I participated. I accompanied the case of Tondaime, a place in the south of Ecuador affected by the implementation of an open mine, and that has many consequences: pollution of nature, as well as impoverished people. There's been violent displacements, and people remained homeless. These years of accompaniment were very important. We deepened the Laudato Si in contact with the people who were suffering. Therefore, it's about mistreating nature and also their impoverishment. So our participation, this is our participation in this campaign after the General Assembly of Major Superiors in May of last year. Mercedes Lopez, our Superior General, entrusted the community here in Canada to animate this campaign. Can we go forward? We are 3 sisters in the community. Marie-Claire, who's Canadian, Catherine French, and I'm Spanish. This has allowed us to work with the 3 languages easily. The first thing we did was, next slide. The first thing was go to the campaign and study all the resources. So thank you very much to all the congregations who have shared resources. It was very important for us and very useful. We especially want to thank the Sisters of the Presentation for the document you see here. We are developing with the communities this document, and it's very encouraging. So thank you all for everything you shared. We are doing some monthly submissions to the community. So this is all very encouraging, energizing. This year, we should prepare the general chapter that should happen in July 2020. We'll see if it happens. And during that preparation, the International Economic Team asked us how we see a congregation that can be more consistent with ecology. From that petition, we produced this document of suggestions for an ecological path in the congregation. It is in the 3 languages in the resource section. It is a document that wants to be overcome. That's what we see now, but I am sure that the other congregations will go farther and it can be improved. We speak of 5 dimensions. I will now look at each of them and give you 3 examples for each of how the Ursulines are journeying. But the horizon that we see also in this document, we're headed toward that. Anyhow, there is the environmental dimension. Our earth is becoming a huge trash bin, and it is important for each gesture, each action. It is important to carry out the education. So all the sisters in Bolivia participate to a process of reforestation. In Madagascar is also working in reforestation with the diocese. The lay people in Madagascar, during our last meeting this summer, gave us a great idea. Madagascar was a green island, and it is increasingly becoming a red island. The problem of deforestation is huge. We must think that many people in Madagascar cook with wood, so that's a problem. They were talking about making fossil fuels with animal residues, animal excrements, and that's a real dimension. In the schools, there are some awareness campaigns for the entire population in the schools. Here, the image you see is in Chile, where everybody participates, and also in the Madagascar schools, they are carrying out that type of campaigns. The economic dimension will truly, we have to say, as the Pope says, this system kills. We have to question the development and progress models. The first thing we have to try to question is our money. Where is our money invested? we have to be present in ethical banks. This is a journey we do, not each congregation on its own, but together we gain more strength together. Our general level is in France, and there we work with responsible investment fund and sustainable management. In Spain, we have come very far with the Conference of Religious, and we are part of the Ethical Bank of Fiare. We have to also be very careful about donations. I want to mention Querida Amazonia at number 5 that speaks about this, careful about donations. In Latin America, I would say this is almost tragic. All the bishops in Latin America are activists, and the mining industry tries to become legitimate by appealing to the church at all levels, diocesan, bishops, small levels, and be careful because ultimately we are stained with blood. At this small community where I was, they go to the older catechist and they ask him, what do you need? Well, paint the church. Okay, they paint the church, and then there's a huge marble can you please slow down for the translation, please? A little slower. So a big marble slab saying thank you to the mining industry. So ultimately, the people, it is an insult for the people who lost their homes because of the mining industry. And we've also suffered a lot because of how the companies manipulate the church. So when donations are offered, we have to be suspicious. In Querida Amazonia, that is discussed because the situation in the Amazon is tragic. The third aspect of the economic dimension is the need for growth. The sisters in Madagascar and France are having meetings to see how we can grow at the community and personal levels. We are all called to that conversion. The cultural dimension, the disappearance of a culture is very serious, as Laudato Sii says, and the experience of interculturality in itself is already a praise to the Trinitary God. The diversity is a sign of the kingdom, so we have a long journey of welcoming migrants as Ursulines in many countries, in France, in Spain, in Chile, with Haitians, Canada, which is multicultural. The image you will now see is in Vitoria in Spain. You see that there's a type of Spaniards at the parish, but most of the women are Muslims. At the educational level, in Quito, Ecuador, we had a project with children to prevent them from being on the streets. What we did with them was a musical, Mother Earth. We wrote the script and we wrote the songs with the children. You'll find that in resources in Spanish if you wish. Here in Canada, we're collaborating with Development and Peace, Caritas Canada, for the campaign for the Amazon. We're trying to make this reality present here. If you can go to the next slide. The spiritual dimension. We all know the theory, men and women are the same. We're all in the image of God. Let's go to the social dimension, please. Any ecological affirmation is a social one, and we have to give community responses. The Pope invites us to live these experiences with strong spiritual experiences. The sisters from the UK are already ahead. They share our monthly submissions with the laity. They go beyond. In Cochabamba, they work with the Bolivian Conference of Religious. They're spreading the synod, everything that came out to the communities, and they are betting on the woman. They are working against the violence against women and human trafficking that is dramatic in the Amazon. And we get to social communication means. We are called to make our word public in the social media in favor of the poor in nature. At that level of advocacy, we participated to the audience for the the hearing for the Commission for Human Rights for the Amazon people, and one of the cases was Condaima. We were in charge of that part of the report, and we also accompanied the process in Washington. About the cultural dimension, I think it's the following. The disappearance of a species. Well, I already mentioned that. Let's, next slide, please. The spiritual dimension. As I said, the theory is that we're all in the image of God and we're all equal. So men and women were equal. We all accept the theory, but if this doesn't become a reality in the practice, if we don't see it in the facts, then we're not credible. So in accordance with the principle of integral ecology, in order to support, we have to decrease. That means that those who are more protagonists have to decrease to give more space to the more marginalized parts, and that would be the women. So we have to be more visible, have more protagonism in the church, because the male over-representation is a lack of balance that distorts the image of God. So we have to empower each other and encourage ourselves to have a public speech. This is a picture of Sister Catherine from France, who's offering a workshop at the parish. In Spain, there's a group about comprehensive ecology, and it's been working for more than 20 years. They're very creative. They are open to the laity and other congregations. They are very creative. And the last thing they've done was ecological Olympics. Age is not a factor. They continue being creative. There's also a call for public speech to give our view as women. So we are sharing among resources our vision, our view about women, about the Synod, and Querida Amazonia. We have to have that public word. And the last dimension is everyday life, because if all of this is not translated into concrete practices, this conversion that we are experiences would not be serious. So we give the example of the sisters from Madagascar who are doing a lot of work about caring for the energy, not wasting water, the plastics. They have vegetable gardens, they raise animals, they maintain the whole process, and the organic trash, for example, feed the animals, they go to the vegetable gardens, they eat what they grow. It's a complete cycle, and they do everything in an organic fashion. The sisters in Cameroon, you see the sisters who manage the diocesan school, they grow their vegetable garden for the consumption of the community. And in the end, I also wanted to mention the commitment with the poor. In a world where there are so many people that are poor, Laudato Si also speaks of this, and this option is necessary. We want to present 3 examples. In Madagascar, one of the sisters in the community of Mariana Rivo is a chaplain at the prison, and there are huge problems there. They have no water. It's a tragic situation. The sisters have offered their own well so that the prisoners can come out and get water. It has truly changed their level, the lifestyle. Thanks to that, depression has eased a lot. Another element about being with the poor is precisely in the Amazon, the accompaniment for populations affected by major projects. The whole synod discussed this. It's something really tragic. You have to be there to see how, when nature is contaminated and resources are scarce, there's nothing to live on. You see people who are displaced so that the mine can be established. All the signs we made with REPAM to accompany these communities, those 2 are in the resource section. And lastly, Canada. Canada, where I am, there are very good things here, but the face of poverty in Canada is indigenous. The colonization process has been very powerful here with consequences. In June, we published a report about women and young people, indigenous people who disappeared or who were murdered. Not all the cases were reported. There were almost 4,000 women who were murdered. And as the report says, just because they were indigenous. These are the first countries, but ultimately we're talking about an indigenous population that is very marginalized here in Canada, that is still paying a very high price. Only 2% of the national territory is an indigenous reserve, and they still have to fight so that those people will not get in. So that's it. Thank you very much. I'm sorry the system did not work perfectly, but thank you very much. Thank you to the campaign. Thank you to the shared resources. We've been very energized by this, and we're very thankful, so we can all continue on that pathway to integral and comprehensive ecology.
Thank you so much for being able to give your presentation, even though it was difficult. Your message still came through very loud and clear. The sisters, the Ursuline sisters, are doing wonderful work in the many areas where you are working. I think your understanding of background, you have a historical and a background in geography, so your ability to put together the people with the environment and share that perspective has been very, very powerful. So we appreciate that, as well as your ability to weave in the experience of the Pan-Amazonian Synod, because you worked so closely with the people there at that time. So thank you so much for that sharing. With that, I want to continue on to really take advantage of the message that she's given us to further develop what we're calling this rollout plan. So here she goes again, really sharing her heart. So, as Sister Maria de Los Angeles showed us so well, it's more than just doing one event. It's how do we bring that forward in a very organized way, and how do we connect that? And that's the purpose of this rollout plan. This is the second part, is how we interconnect that. And as religious, we find ourselves really trying to look as Jesus would look at a reality of our situation. Here we have Zacchaeus up there in that tree. Jesus finds him. On the road to Emmaus, Jesus is explaining the scriptures to the disciples. And then you can see him here as he touches others. So it's about that love that we experience in our own relationship with Jesus, that we are about sharing with others. See with the eyes of Christ, make judgments out of compassion, and act in that spirit of love. This is part of how we bring this forward, the 2020 rollout plan, which in the last webinar was explained to us by Father Joshua, as well as Laura from the Global Catholic Climate Movement. So we use as a basis for our study many of our documents. We use the Bible, Catholic social teaching, the encyclical, our own constitutions. So that is really, really important for us, that we have that way of thinking through things so that they do make a difference for us. And when we give our prayer services or in our chapter meetings, we make sure that we're using these documents to support what we're trying to do. So this plan, as Pope Francis said in Laudato Sii 164, interdependence obliges us to think of one world with a common plan. So one world with a common plan. Our purpose is, how can Laudato Sii help us bring about a common plan as individuals, personal conversion, congregations, our countries, the different constellations of the UISG. All of these are different options for us to choose how to go forward. And Sister Maria de Los Angeles showed us an excellent example of how her congregation, Ursulines, have done that, and how she, as the contact person, is helping that person go forward. Because we've asked each congregation to have such a person to help us move it forward, which is so important. So these are the parameters that we're looking at a Laudato Si plan, a plan for integral ecology, a way of measuring what it is that we're trying to do. And as you can see with these metrics, the center of this as religious are the spirituality. And because that's important for us, we are able to share that with others. And it's a good reason for why Father Jostrom Garitadam asked us to lead, because of our commitment and our connections. We can share that with others because it's a way that we do things. So the areas, as we are looking at in this plan, would look at the cry of the earth, the cry of the poor, economics, money, our lifestyles and any changes that we need to be making there, our education, how we get the message out, and how we involve others in advocacy. And as we can reflect back on many ways, that's what Sister Maria de Los Angeles shared with us. She said it in different contexts, but all of these areas were referred to in one way or the other. So that's what we're looking at. How can we begin to measure our actions, our involvement in these areas? So we are in the midst, our congregations are in the midst at our perceptions of looking and hearing the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, the first two dimensions that were mentioned. And it's about our presence. So what I'm going to do to show again how our different congregations are doing these things already in one dimension or the other. And the pictures that I'm taking from here are from the resources that you would find on that page, and that was referred to as well in the previous talk, for you to get some ideas and to share more, because we need more ideas. And so Pope Francis has made the care for the environment the 8th work of mercy. So of course our dear Mercy sisters would want to make that a strong point for themselves, and the importance again of our presence in the world. Another way looking at the environment, the Good Shepherd sisters going into community, listening to the stories of the people and what they need. Here in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, an area near a mining site, they're teaching the people how to grow vegetables and care of the earth in a way that really helps them have a productive crops. Last time we talked with the Holy Cross sisters, the example then of using the environment, taking care of the environment in a sustainable way, but recycling the plastic in a way that would deal with the economy, that would give employment. So it was the care of the earth and the care of the poor working together. That was so important. So you have the people from North America area helping the people from Ghana, as well as other countries of that congregation. Fair trade. Many of us in the economic area are thinking of how can you buy fair trade products, which is the symbol that's here. And these are a list of some of the products, and you can find where they are in your area on the website. And fair trade also is concerned about fair business practices. So that's an important way, again, of integrating the message of Laudato Si. A concern for the environment and the destruction. This is a community that put together the Stations of the Cross, dealing with their message for certainly during this time of Lent, of how the poor are affected by the chaos, the violence that happens in our different countries. this being the 9th station where Jesus is falling the 3rd time. The other area mentioned on the metrics was education. So we have different congregations giving us resources that we can go to and pick out, or some quotes from Laudato Si, and even some have gone together and published materials. So you see here 2 congregations moving ahead in an important way with education, and they're sharing those resources as well. A simple teaching practice, one of our Dominican sisters, Dominican sisters certainly known for spreading the truth, it's part of their charism. This was for some young children, and sister here, Stefania, put in this little jar paper and plastic, and they watched for 3 months to see what would be disintegrated. After 3 months, there was no paper, but the plastic came out as it was when it went in. So showing the power of why we're concerned about the plastics. So the projects, so what they eat with are recyclable, are either recyclable or that real biodegrade. And then also their portions are, for them at their age. So they're really looking out of, many things here in terms of food waste and being careful. Simple process. The area we're asked to look at is our lifestyle, and then how we sometimes put together grids, part of a solar grid that helps service the other people in the community beyond our convent. And this is one of the North American provinces. It's the Redeemer of the Blood of Christ. Here's an example, the Wheaton Franciscans of the US, who have a beautiful walking path and also a prayer for the earth taken from Laudato Si, and a way then of also growing different vegetables as well. So a celebration is one of the areas, the season of creation, which of course will be forthcoming. And also during that time, at the end of the month of September, we will probably be celebrating the 5th anniversary of Laudato Si in a special way. So we're moving the date from May to September. Here we see an institute, the Figlio di Maria Auxiliatrice, the Salesians of Don Bosco. They have a video on the website, and this is their 50th anniversary for them being in their house in Italy. They're going to be planting a tree. They're going to be watering the tree. Some shovels are in the background. They're praying. But on the video that they released to their whole congregation, they did some teaching about how can we work together on recycling and reducing or reusing some material. So that it was not only a video of that celebration, but it was a video of actions, integrated actions as well. So the last metric that was mentioned was the one about community involvement. So how do we do advocacy? And this is an example of a joint statement, which was very, very important because it included both the French and the English-speaking religious in Canada. And this was one of the commitments that those two speaking groups, English and French, decided to do as a commitment for Laudato Si. So that was released just before the election. It was an important statement, not only what it said, but how they worked together. That also is available on the website. And another example of a constellation, this is a Rome constellation where we have the English-speaking group and the Italian group. And here we find them being concerned about cleaning up the streets of Rome and collecting the garbage more frequently. And we say the same thing down in here. So the Italians are saying the same thing, that we want to deal with cleaning up our city and working together as a community, and maybe involving others as well. So both members of this constellation in their 2 languages came with the same kind of commitment. So maybe as the group in Canada, we will come out with a joint statement helping keep Rome clean And that is quite, would be quite a challenge if this can be done. So what are we after here is what we call a tipping point. Now this is really important, and this is why we want to be doing these metrics. And we have many congregations from various countries that they've shared their stories in different ways, depending upon the theme of the webinar. But you can pull out some of the same elements depending upon what our theme would be. So we know how much good is happening. We're trying to organize this to build a momentum to promote the spirit of Laudato Si, to make this a reality. We want to orchestrate and coordinate your experiences to build the tipping point for change. The metrics are a way of helping us know where we are at a tipping point. We're still in the process of writing these metrics. This will be developmental and will be applicable in general ways to all of the 7 families that are being involved in this process: the dioceses, the parishes, the universities, the schools, the 7 different areas, one of them being the religious congregations. The carnivorous virus has put a stop on many things going forward, and this is one of them, but we can still want to be able to work with that, and we want your patience. We will be working particularly with the religious. Global Catholic Climate Movement is working to put all of this together. But the interesting thing is religious are really involved in all of the other areas as well. So we're contributing to others, but we want to have a strong message for ourselves. So you may ask, what is a tipping point that Father Joshua referred to in the last webinar? Well, studies have been done by the networks of dynamics groups that have proven that when a certain number of the population is concerned about an issue, then that number encourages many more to be concerned as well. And in their studies, they point to the 25%. So we're looking at achieving the 25% of our, either we could say our congregations or our sisters or the members of our church, whatever it is, we're looking for that number, 25%. That would be our challenge in order to make Laudato Si a reality in our lives and in our connections. So we're looking at many hands taking these flowers, blooming, and removing them out to others. And our hope is that we would find 50 congregations at this point willing to do something with this in preparation for the meeting that will be coming in September. So more will be coming out with this, and hopefully in our webinar in June, we will have much more together to share with you in terms of the specifics. But you can look at the rollout plan on the website. You can see already some ideas that are there in the categories we just talked about. So you can be doing some things, and we know in some way that this will be a part of the metrics going forward. So this is our dream. This is the dream we started with. This is the dream that we hope to make real, that we commit ourselves to both personal and communal conversion, move forward together, orchestrating all of the charisms from the different congregations in a coordinated response as we listen to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, as we are going forth as instruments of hope in the heart of the world. And so we need some inspiration to carry us forward on this journey. And that's why I'm asking now Amy Escrivera, the board chair of the Global Catholic Climate Movement, to share her experience as the board member when they visited Pope Francis and talked about the impact of Laudato Si. Amy is a founding member and the board president of GCCM. She serves as the international coordinator for JPIC for the Colombian missionaries, men and lay missionaries. Her work includes collaboration with national Colombian JPIC teams, as well as international partners like GCCM, Pax Christi International, the Catholic Nonviolence Initiative. on a range of issues, including integral ecology, peace and nonviolence, migration and economic justice. And prior to her work with the Columbans, she lived in Chile with the Society of the Holy Child Jesus, where she worked with refugees and vulnerable women and youth. So Amy, please, we would like you at this time, Amy should be coming up shortly, to be able to share with us that wonderful experience with Pope Francis. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Sister Sheila. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yes, very good, Amy.
Oh, wonderful. Gosh, I'm really very moved and inspired by Sister Sheila and Sister Maria Angeles. It's really amazing the work that all the women religious are doing around the world. So it really is such a pleasure to be here with you today during Holy Week. I'd like to just share my screen. Can you see that screen okay?
Yes.
Good. So, I think Sister Maria Angeles and Sister Sheila have spoken so beautiful, and as the world is experiencing a kind of communion like never before with coronavirus, I think to myself, if we had ever doubted that our bonds are stronger than our differences, certainly this pandemic has reminded us that we really are one global family, all children of God. So again, I want to thank Sister Sheila for the invitation to be here, to all of you for welcoming me into your conversations. As Sister Sheila said, I've been invited to speak about our recent experience as the board of GCCM to meet with Pope Francis. The occasion was that of our annual board meeting, which this year was held in Rome. And this year also marks the 5th anniversary of GCCM, the founding of GCCM, parallel with the release of Laudato Si. And so we really found ourselves reflecting in a special way on the early years of GCCM and wanting to step back and take a moment to listen to how the Spirit is calling us into the future. So when we met, when we went to meet with Pope Francis, we were received in a reception room, which had as its centerpiece this tapestry here by Romanian artist, and it's called Cosmic Embrace. It is an enormous tapestry that was probably 20 feet by 10 feet. Just a beautiful image. And in this private audience, it was an intimate gathering of about 10 people, including Cardinal Tagle, who serves on GCCM's Episcopal Advisory Board and has been a GCCM champion since GCCM was launched during Pope Francis's visit to the Philippines in 2015. Cardinal Tagle welcomed us and offered a brief introduction. What was supposed to be a brief 15-minute meet and greet, as Pope Francis had another engagement following ours, it actually turned into an hour conversation about the state of the world, the story of the birth of the encyclical Laudato Si, and Pope Francis's own personal conversion story. As board president, it was my humbling honor to open our conversation. Going into the audience, as we said, it was unclear how much time we would have. But after my concluding remarks, Pope Francis graciously invited each person in the circle to share something about themselves and the work of GCCM. As you can see here in this picture, board member John O'Shaughnessy with the Franciscan Sisters of Mary was locked in this beautiful gaze with Pope Francis as he spoke of the sisters' mission of compassionate care of creation. And with each person who spoke, you could see and feel that same deep presence and listening of the Holy Father. After Pope Francis listened to each person in the room, he humorously said, "I guess now it's my turn." So with that, he offered his own reflections that I found most humbling and encouraging. First, he commented on the maternal and tender work of GCCM, all its member organizations, partners, and the church to bring Laudato Si to life. He affirmed that the work of creating, nurturing, connecting, listening is the work we all share in the care for our common home. And in this maternal care, there is a tenderness and compassion that counters the violence and the ashes of our time. All of these words were spoken with that beautiful cosmic embrace behind Pope Francis. The Holy Father continued by sharing in a beautifully interwoven way the birth of Laudato Si and his own personal conversion towards an eco-spirituality. He took us back to Aparecida in 2007 and the drafting of the final document. When reviewing the text, he acknowledged his own doubts about including the language that was put forth by the Brazilian bishops about hearing the cry of the Amazon. But in the end, he agreed to its conclusion. He noted that it wasn't until he, quote unquote, arrived in Rome that the urgency became clear to him from listening to his advisors, scientists, theologians. He noted humbly that the development of Laudato Si was truly a collaborative work of many people and of hearing the cries of the people and the earth. I was deeply moved and encouraged by the way he allowed himself to be vulnerable to us. It became clear that when he calls us in Laudato Si to an ongoing ecological conversion, he includes himself in that journey. On a humorous note, of which there were a number, he noted that in our next meeting, the cardinals will be in cardinal green instead of cardinal red. And while lighthearted in tone, I do believe it's an insight into his hope that the church will find ways in symbol and substance to integrate more deeply a theology, a spirituality, a liturgy, practices, and pastoral care that is rooted in the common good for all of creation. After everyone had the opportunity to speak and be heard from the heart, we concluded by standing in a circle and praying the Our Father, the most unifying and rooting prayer of our faith. And in that circle, I held with me my loved ones, Columbans, the entire GCC family, GCCM family, and indeed the entire world. Finally, after the exchange of gifts, Pope Francis invited us to gather in the private passageway where he enters the reception hall. There he showed us this stunning tapestry of God giving birth to humanity and all the universe. He shared that every time he passes this tapestry on his way to enter the hall, he proclaims in his heart, Laudato Si. It was so beautiful to have that intimate sharing, to know something of his personal ritual in relation to Laudato Si. And so after he shared the beauty of this tapestry, we said our goodbyes, we offered our final prayers and our gratitude. In the weeks since our encounter, I continued to reflect on Pope Francis's message to be maternal and tender, especially in the midst of the ashes of our lives and the world. It brought to mind this photo from my childhood and how absorbed I was by this flower. If I could have climbed into it, I probably would have. And today, as a Colombian and as a mother, I still find myself gazing into the soul of creation, searching for that same sense of all-encompassing love that is so exquisitely expressed in Laudato Si. And this image of the resurrecting Christ is a bold reminder that resurrection, like transformation, is not a singular event, but a journey. The collaborative work of sowing hope for the planet between Women Religious and GCCM is vital to the transformative journey of the Laudato Si message. With over 900 member organizations around the world, many of whom are on this call today, are you yourselves, GCCM's mission is threefold. It is to accompany hearts in our journey of ecological conversion. It is to transform lives towards right relationship with all of creation. And it is to lift up voices, the cry of the people and the cry of the earth, create public space so that they may be heard for structural change. The role of women religious has always been that of prophetic witness. Today's speakers, Sister Sheila and Sister Maria Angelica, Angeles, are just beautiful examples of that. And in this time of both ecological transformation and deformation, yet again, women religious are opening our imaginations to new relationships with each other, with God, and with all of creation. So thank you for all the ways you continue to lead us into new worlds of discovery. Sowing Hope for the Planet is a beautiful project, a place where the story can be told concretely and accessed universally. And you can be sure that the first thing that I'll do when the webinar concludes is go to the website and search the library, the catalog of resources. So thank you for that. And finally, I pray that throughout this 5th anniversary year of Laudato Si and GCCM and beyond, that we will continue to live into the invitation, to live Laudato Si together, to be maternal and tender co-creators with each other, with all of creation, and with God, as a way of living into the call to deep, transformative, resurrecting love for all of creation. Thank you all. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Amy, for your delightful sharing of your wonderful experience with Pope Francis and your ability to capture the emotional involvement of yourself and of others, both in words and in the pictures that you chose. And the tender story of Pope Francis himself, of coming to a sense of conversion, of his own works, of continuing to look at them and develop the meaning that he intuitively knew, but is now knowing as a reality. And the tenderness of that moment with you, that little child who would have been beside herself if she had known what her future would be, that you are now living. You know, that is exquisite story of oneness with nature that's so, so important. So thank you, Amy, for being so generous with your time. And now I think people know, or the sisters know, why you are the chairperson, the board chair of the Global Catholic Climate Movement. So thank you, Amy. Now is the opportunity for you to ask questions through, I don't know what the best method will be. In the past, we've kind of noted if people had raised their hand or they may want to put something in the chat box. Let's see what happens. Let's see, Patricia usually kind of monitors the chats. Have we got anything, Patricia, that people want to ask any of our speakers or any comments they would like to give?
Not so far, but perhaps we can leave a 1 minute to people to, sorry, not so far, but we can leave a 1 minute to people if they need to prepare the question, they can write it in the chat, or we can also try, Florence, right? We can also try to give the flow to people directly. But they have to ask the flow on the chat, so we can look for them in the audience.
Okay.
You just need to unmute yourself.
Okay, we have missionaries general. So you have this. Okay.
I think you can. Misiones General, creo que pueden hablar, ¿eh?
Gracias. Agradezco mucho la conferencia.
Thank you for the conference. I'd like to ask whether all those small initiatives at the end of the year will be seen, will be added, because I think that the small things make great changes, but we just know these at this level. I just want to know if they will be visible for the public at large. Thank you. Thank you, sister. We have Alirio. I also invite you to introduce yourselves, perhaps. Peace in the love of God. My name is Alirio Cáceres Aguirre from Colombia, permanent deacon. I'd like to deepen the event about the Franciscan economy event and the Global Pact, how this initiative can be connected, how can we strengthen the work in schools and universities. Thank you, Alirio. Pleasure to see you. You were in Rome. Yes.
I answer just a couple of those questions as more people are writing in the chat, and Amy may also be able to answer some more, and also Sister Maria Angeles, because of her experience in the Panama-Amazonian area, may want to add something. We will be asking people to submit their events so that they can be uploaded on the website. So I'm going through where it says resources to submit that. And if you have difficulty, please email myself or UISG. We will make sure that we find a way that they will be uploaded. So don't let difficulty ever stop you. We will find a way to make it work. And the way this plan was conceived is to work with the sisters and their connections. So we're trying to see in what way we can coordinate those efforts. So the sisters are in many of the areas, like the universities, the schools, the different places, and we're asking for their influence to begin to expand, and then to share the resources that we have with the different groups that they're working with. So it's a way of trying to find a way that's manageable and that we can get some metrics on this to go forward, and then this will be expanded even further. So just keep, and then you can also just email us if you have something that's beyond the campaign networking that we are doing to help expand us in new ways. We're certainly open to that, as well. Amy, do you want to say something more, because the GCCM is dealing with all of the members of the family beyond the religious?
Thanks, Sheila. I just, in response to, I heard part of what Lydia was saying in regards to working with schools and universities. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to share that another initiative that is being born out of GCCM and is another kind of global network that's called Listen. And it is a network of universities working in to advance the Laudato Si message. So we know that several universities have, for example, Laudato Si institutes or degrees, certificates in Laudato Si. And so this new network is developing to coordinate more closely, to collaborate more closely. And as you said, Sheila, so many women religious are in higher education. So we certainly want to take this opportunity to extend an invitation to you to participate in that intentional work of globally universities working together in Laudato Si. And Sheila, feel free to pass on my contact information if anyone is interested. We meet monthly by Zoom, and we've had one in-person meeting. We're hoping to have a second in-person meeting to coincide with the 5th anniversary celebrations in Rome whenever they happen. So I'm not sure, Lydio, if that's responsive to your points, but it's what was sparked for me in what you were saying. And so again, thank you all. And I hope that you would consider joining this additional space for those of you working in university settings on Laudato Si. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And I think what we really want to stress is that we network together. I mean, we have the different families, but they're not isolated. I think the strength of what we're really trying to do is make a bundle of all of the different members of our family so that we speak real strongly of one message. And that's important.
Sheila, just a second to say, because I learned that perhaps the chat is not working for all of you, but you are allowed to unmute your microphone if you want to say something. So I just unmute you while people are speaking, because otherwise it's very difficult. So
Vale.
Go ahead, yeah.
Así bien, buenas. Soy José Antonio de España.
My name is Jose Antonio from Spain. I'm a member of the Secular Franciscan Order, and I'm also an animator for Laudato Si for the global Catholic movement for climate, and also participate to Justice and Peace. I have a degree in biological science. I'm also a scientist. I think that everything I'm hearing is very interesting, all the projects I heard, and I just encourage you to continue forward and keep building Laudato Si all over the world. But I see that these projects remain ad intra within the structures. I'm very concerned about the ad extra, that is how we must work as Catholics in order to carry this message of Laudato Si to the major problems caused by the major international issues. For example, the injustices, economic injustice, pollution caused by multinationals. that is the 70–80% of the pollution that exists in the world. So I'm very concerned about how we can get out of our own structures and facilities to denounce. How can we work at that within our structures? Thank you.
That's a very important question, because as I was going through the different metrics, the last one was community involvement, and the intention of that area is to do exactly with what you're saying. How can our lives, our structures make a difference in the world? And how can we go out and involve the communities in ways that will make a difference? I think when Sister Maria Angeles would like to maybe explain a little bit more of her work with the mining industries, as well as her work with the different human rights issues. What we're about, I think she can elaborate more in response to your concerns, because we're about transforming the world. We're serious about this tipping point. We're serious about making the influence felt beyond our borders, beyond our structures, wherever we find ourselves. And the reason why we use metrics is because, yes, this is hard, but if we can be clear about what we're trying to do, then we can do it. And we can do it beyond our borders. So that's where we're aiming for. But I'm wondering, Sister Maria Los Angeles, would you want to speak a little bit more about how you have gone beyond the borders in your experience? She good? Is she still on?
Very interesting. These questions are not questions, they're interventions. In the Amazon, in REPAM, we're trying to do precisely that, integrate all of us, but along the line of the demand of the rights. The issue is very serious. The Amazon is being destroyed. The governments are activists, so the companies have the governments on their side. There are legal issues also. Justice is not impartial, it's always in favor of companies and governments. The only thing that we have left is to get together or to unite. It's an emergency. We as a congregation have to get out of our congregation and create alliances, whether Catholic or non-Catholic. We have to work with others as much as possible in the public in a public context. That's an evangelical need. We have to do everything possible to be together with others. We have to be visible. This cause is a demand, is a need. I also want to pick up Alirio's invitation about the economic issue. Pay attention to this meeting that will be held at the Vatican. What are we facilitating through our investments? We all have money. Of course, we cannot live without it. But be careful about where our money is going. Ultimately, it is the consumer power. Where do we place our money? The banks must be attentive to this, so be attention. There's a lot of blood behind all that money. Be careful about your investments and watch where you invest your money. As we were saying, we have to walk together. Well, we have to work with other congregations, dioceses, and together, because together we can make it, we can do advocacy, and it is an obligation. Public advocacy also at the educational level and at the economic level.
Thank you very much. And this is something we want to be doing together and find ways to even do it more effectively. So thank you for that sharing. I think we had another person raise their hand.
This is Pat Murray from UISG. My question is around the whole area of advocacy and where we can, how and where we can bring the grassroots experience to actually tackle and challenge structures. So the whole area of Laudato Si is so wide. I'm wondering, is there a need to focus on some key generic issues that link others, so that we can achieve that tipping point in some key areas? It's just a question. So it's a question of methodology, and it's a question around structures, tackling structures through advocacy, and how can we do that in a more effective way, particularly by bringing the voices from the grassroots level to the seats of power.
It was kind of a response to that, Sister Pat. One thing that Father Jostrom had said to me, because much of this planning was going to be done at the Vatican level, and because of the coronavirus, they are not able to do it. So it's pushed back on us, the religious, to do it, who are in the best places to deal with the grassroots. So I think what we're trying to do at this point is try to listen to one another, to listen to the stories, see which areas are being raised up and that have the most potential to make a difference, whether it's water, whether it's some of these major mining companies. For example, recently it was announced that Brazil was thinking of shutting down 40 of the different mining companies, mining sites, because the dams were in a position that something tragic could happen. Now, whether they're going to do it or not is another question. And what about the people that are working there? That's another question. So we want to be able to be exploring, doing just exactly what you're saying, find an area or find the quality of ourselves that we bring to any area in a way that we can make a difference, in a way that it can be concrete, that it can be measurable, and that we're reporting on that. And so we're looking at what's happening in the different constellations. We're looking at what issues seem to be raising that we can make that point. And so we're still a little bit more in the listening, the exploring stages, but what you're saying is an important factor moving it forward. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Sheila, may I offer a comment to that too?
Sure, Amy.
Thank you. I just want to share that in the meeting that the board had with Pope Francis, and we were talking about the birth of Laudato Si. One of the points that Pope Francis stressed was he had originally thought to release Laudato Si later in the year of 2015. And in speaking with his advisors, there was a strong urgency to release it prior to COP20. Was it COP20 or 21?
21.
21. And so from the very beginning, Laudato Si has been linked with these political structural processes. And from a GCCM perspective, probably our first major campaign, so to speak, was in relation to preparing for COP21. And advocacy and structural change is one of our 3 pillars of work. So I think that those are spaces, those UN, especially those UN conferences on climate change, as well as, for example, the biodiversity conference that is scheduled to happen this year, although it's been postponed. So those are important political spaces that I think women religious and the church has a really important role to play. And I just also want to celebrate and acknowledge the work of Raypom and Maria Angeles with that, the example of the human rights school that happened in 2016, and the second, I think there's a second one being planned at this stage, and how important that is the intentionality of formation of people in the grassroots of their political rights, so that their voices can be heard directly instead of intermediaries. And so I think Ray Palm's work has been really crucial in creating that space for formation, education, for people to be speaking for themselves in these halls of policy and so forth. So thank you for that.
Sheila, your micro is off.
Okay. Any other questions related to that? I think if you were looking at specific areas, the area of plastic and water have been two of the major areas that have come up to the fore in one way or the other, dealing with the quality of human life. That's been very, very important. And we're also finding that sometimes in our local areas, they can only tell their story. They don't really know what to do about it. And what Amy is saying in terms of helping them come together and find a language for them to be able to express themselves, that's so important. And I think recently we had the bishop from Romadinha come and speak on the mining issue. And when we asked him, what can you do? He said, I'm just able to tell my story. And I'm able to bring my story before the UN. And I'm able to say people are violating our rights. And what we're finding now from some of the mining industry is the fact that the people's ability to now want to say no is causing them to take a serious look at what it is that they're doing. So these trainings are having an effect in one way or the other. So thank you for bringing that up, Amy. Very important. Any other questions?
Yo también pienso que algo muy importante.
I too think that it is very important to also form our interior to other types of economy that are sustainable and viable, because I think that those who do not read the terms that you read on some documents may be very technical, and most of the people at the grassroots level do not understand them. So we have to take that formation to a content that can be more legible for all of us. That is an idea that perhaps should be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sister, for saying that's very important. We have to be educated, that's for sure. Okay, Nani, please. I think, is there a place for Nani to raise her question? Please, sister.
I have the impression she doesn't have the micro.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from anyone, or any other? Okay. Let's have any other parting words any of our speakers would like to say before we kind of bring this to a closure. You know, after hearing what people have raised in terms of their concerns, would you want to raise or have any other following comments to make at this point? Amy, would you have anything more you would like to say?
Thanks, Sheila. Just on a practical note, in response to the last intervention, one of the programs of GCCM is the Laudato Sii animators program. It's a training of trainers. So that's one space that that the members here might consider participating in, either for themselves or encouraging others in their communities, to participate in. Because I think you're right that the importance of education and formation is so critical. But by way of closing words, I just want to express my deep gratitude So thank you. I just again want to express my deep gratitude to each and every person here and all the communities that you represent. As Sheila shared, I lived in Chile with the Sisters of Holy Child Jesus, and they living with the sisters was such a beautiful experience of formation for me. And so to have the opportunity to connect with all of you and be inspired yet again by your mission, by your faith, is so deeply inspiring to me. And as a partner with you in GCCM, I want to thank you also for your openness of heart and collaboration. I think this experience of the pandemic is really stretching us in ways that we couldn't have imagined a mere 2 months ago. And yet there's something that has in our faith that prepares us for a moment like this. And I think about Pope Francis's words in Evangelii Gaudium when he talks about time is greater than space, and that we are constantly poised between this individual moment and the utopian horizon to which we are drawn. So what a blessing to be living this particular moment with all of you and walking towards that utopian horizon to which we are deeply drawn. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. And Sister Maria de Los Angeles, any other comment you would like to make before we close?
Gracias por la oportunidad.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for everything we've shared. I think that our strength is in unity, as Sheila was saying. We give life to the area of resources, and we have to encourage ourselves. How can we become visible? How can we give visibility? By sharing them. So take the time to put things in writing or to visualize through pictures what we do. Let's share them. That's how we can be strong. At this virtual level, the campaign is a beautiful place to do this. So let's share resources. Let's share our experiences. We are strengthening each other. And wherever we are, let's make alliances with everyone. The level of advocacy and of influence is important. We have to dare to have a public voice. As women, let us be encouraged to having this public voice. We may not do it perfectly, but it's worse to not do it. And do advocacy, say what is not right, make an alternative public. We have to go out. Sometimes it's in our conference of religious, but also with non-believers. We share some values that have to be public, and we have to be as believers in some spaces with people who do not share our faith, but they may share our cause for the nature. So let's share locally and on the virtual platforms. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much to both of our speakers for sharing your heart, your enthusiasm, your ideas, your affirmation of the work that we hope to be doing. We know we can count on you in the future. And I think all of you that are present here for the webinar, that you will be here as we go forward in the long haul. That's so important because it's going to take a long time for us to make a difference, but we're going to find a way forward, and we know that we can count on you. I'd like to just take this moment to thank certainly Sister Patricia and also Florence for your wonderful work at UISG for helping put together this program, in terms of the technical assistance. I mean, really, this has been a challenge, not being there at the site where UISG has everything that we need, trying to maneuver back and forth, and it's been a real challenge. And also to our translators who, trying to work on this. And Father Pix for the beautiful prayer service that he had said, led us this at the beginning of this session. So very, very important. So during this time of Lent, which you're experiencing, all the loved ones that we know are affected in any way with the coronavirus. And as we move through this Lenten journey to a blessedness of our resurrection, God be with all of you. And we will have a webinar in June, and hopefully we will be moving more together on this path. And if you can, please contribute to the resources. They're vital to this whole process. The strength is there. The strength is that we are together. And also thank you, Pat Murray, for really moving us forward with this at UISG. God bless you all. Take care for your journey. So. Okay. There you go. Okay.
Marie-Angèle, can you stay on? Emmanuel?